Welcome to Startup Hack. With my 25 years of development experience, here at Startup Hack, we turn beginners into full-stack developers in as little as 3 months. Today, we're diving into some more basics of C#, a versatile and powerful programming language that's essential for any developer's toolkit. Whether you're just starting out or looking to refresh your skills, I'll help you enjoy some core concepts that you need to know. From understanding some basics, we'll cover a lot of it, so stick around and let's dive in. All right, so we're going to dive into some C# basics. And again, these are pretty basic. And so if you've already been using C#, go and check out some of my other stuff here. I'm going to put a link up here because I've got hundreds of videos with lots of code samples and more advanced concepts. So we're diving back to some of the basics. So if you're new or if you just want a refresher, these are a good place to start. But again, these are pretty basic. So again, check out that link up above. All right, let's jump in here and we're going to start talking. Let's going to start off talking about some dictionaries. All right, so a dictionary is a great way to be able to find and store some data that you can then index based off the first parameter. So you can look it up and you can see here that we do the find just like we would with the array off of a string for like John Doe. So obviously like a phone book is a pretty good example of a dictionary where you would have a string and then another set of string. But in this case, with dictionaries, you can actually even make the second one a reference type or an object. And doing this, you can actually make the second part be a full object here, not just like a string. And so this allows you to then find basically an object with some simple kind of a lookup. So a GUID, an int, a name, that kind of thing. So let's say that you had a name, address, phone book, and you created like an address object here. You could store it by looking up by the name. So dictionaries are very handy. Definitely use them along with lists. All right. Now, one of the biggest things in C# that throws some people for a loop here, that's a programmer joke there for throwing for a loop, right? Okay, anyways, is that we don't, in C#, we don't call a function, we call them a method. Now, this is definitely a Microsoftism, and I've kind of always wondered why they did this. I know it's because they do have functional programming that's still allowed to happen inside of C#, so they use functions for different things. But in this case, like in JavaScript, you'd call this a function. In C++, you'd call this a function. But in C#, we call this a method. So in this case, our method, otherwise known as a function in most other programming languages, would take the width times the height and return that value. So then if you want to use this somewhere else in your program, you could say var, so I'm probably somewhere that I'm not supposed to be writing this, but we could be able to say public var, oh man, I'm having a rough time here. I must not be inside the right brackets here. But anyways, we could use this by just calling the getArray method. So in this case, like WriteLine is actually a method here. Oh, look, we have an example here. So in this case, we would start with our main. We would create a rectangle class, right, with the height and the width. So this is an object, right? And we can also, as we learned in our previous video, you just use var if we want to here. And then we can then say the getArea, call the getArea method, and this would then return that area into a double, and then we will write it out here. One of the really nice things with C# is the ability to use this $, and then to be able to just use the curly braces. In the old days, we used to have to do this a little bit different. So great to see that this is a helpful way in C# here. So this is our rectangle class. This is the method, and we can see the use of that rectangle class here and its method. All right, methods are super handy. Definitely will use those a ton. All right, let's dig into this next one here then. So let's talk about classes and objects. Now, obviously, we're going to use create objects, which we do using a class definition. So in this case, we're going to have a myClass class, which we would then use later to create a myClass object, right? So this is where we actually make the object creation. And so in this case, we'd have the property name. These are called properties, right? So this is actually a shorthand notation. It used to be very different, and you'd have to actually set the values, but now you can just say get and set, and it will use these properties accordingly. And so this is a really handy way to be able to do this. So C# has a lot of really handy things that you can do with it. All right, the next one we're going to dive into is exception handling. So as with most programming languages, you want to be able to use exception handling to be able to handle things that could be risky. Now in this case, we're not doing anything too crazy, but in this case, we have a method here called get number inputs. Then we're looping while true. Now because this is a loop, if something goes wrong, this thing could loop for forever. So in this case, what we want to do is we enter it. We say, enter a number. We then read the number from the command line, and then we try to parse it. Well, what happens if somebody tries to parse and we try to put in something that's not a number? It's going to throw an error, and that's going to get caught here, and then we can say, hey, that's an invalid input. Now, there's a lot better ways to do this, and I actually teach that this is usually bad practice, but for the case in point that we need here for exception handling, this allows us to manage runtime errors gracefully. Sometimes we'd never want to use these as logic, so a little bit better way to do this would be to check this inside of a conditional statement, which we learned about in our last video. But we supply a ton of different code samples, so make sure you go pull down the code sample. The link's down below. When you pull this down, I think this is video 200 and something. We have even another set of code samples before that. So I think all in total, we've given about 500 different code samples, all .NET, JavaScript, other great languages here. So go pull those code samples down because we've worked really hard to provide those to you. And like and subscribe to the channel because we try to provide you a lot of really great content. All right, anyways. So that is an example of the, so you can see here that we then have a main so this is our class, right? We would call this. You would call that, you would get the number, right? And that way we don't need to mess around with the number, and we'll output the number you have. And even if it even if it fails, you're just going to get this, invalid input, and it'll say you entered an invalid input. Actually, we'll just write it out to the console. It wouldn't actually return that. Okay, let's dive into delegates and events and lambdas. These get to be a little bit more advanced, so we're going to run over these really fast. I doubt this is going to teach you a ton with these. So make sure that you go and do some searches. And again, pull down the code samples because we have lots of other examples, and I'm sure we have examples of these around. All right, in this case, we're going to declare a delegate declaration. So we say public delegate void and then my delegate. We then have an event called my delegate, and we do the event declaration. We then have a person class with name and age. And what we can do here is we say, hey, we're going to create a list of persons, right? And so this is just declaring a list of persons. And then we're going to do a sort, and we do the sort of you have P1 and P2, right? We're going to sort these two, and we're going to sort them based on the name, right? And then once we do that, we'll loop over each of these and call the and loop over each of these after that. So then the output would be Alice, Bob, Charlie, sorted by name, right? So this is going to give you the ability to do a lambda expression here. So this is our lambda expression to be able to do these and sort them in order. So very handy. Definitely make sure that you look these up. You're going to use these lambdas a ton. This is something that you'll see very heavily used in C#. I haven't used a ton of, delegates and events definitely happen. I don't see a lot of people writing a lot of these. Most stuff you're writing nowadays is in APIs and other things, so we don't see a ton of those in those kind of settings. But you will see lambdas a lot. All right, lastly is next here is link. So using link, you have to use the system.link class, right? And then this allows you to query capabilities for data manipulation. So we have a set of numbers here, a list of numbers. And in that list of numbers, we want to know where x divided by 2 is equal to 0. So what is this going to do? It's going to find our even numbers, right? We're going to for each over these even numbers, and this would give us 2, 4, 6, etc., right? But this here is the link query that allows you to be able to do this query on our data set here. Very handy. You may get a list of stuff back from the database and then want to be able to query it in code without having to return back to the database. Or if you've gotten it from a REST call or some other expensive thing, then computers can process this kind of stuff pretty quickly nowadays. All right, attributes. Attributes are important, especially as you're working with APIs and other things. we decorate a class using attributes. So in this case, this would say, hey, look, this one is obsolete. Don't use this one anymore, right? And we can give them a message saying use V2 now. So these become really, attributes become really important to be able to use. And it adds metadata to the code elements. And so you want to be able to make sure that you understand and use attributes very wisely. All right, next, and we're burning through these. So again, feel free to reach out to me if you have comments, questions. I'd love to sit down with you guys and help you. We can set you up with a tutor. We can do all kinds of great stuff. So if you're really interested in learning, hit us up here. Startup Hack is an amazing coding boot camp to teach you how to learn. But we're introducing you to a whole bunch of topics today. So this one is for threading, right? If we want to start using tasks, we can use the async and await now. So the way that we do this is we label or decorate the method by saying, hey, I'm going to make this async and we're going to return a task, right? So this is the task value that you're going to return here. We then, and so this makes for non-blocking code execution, right? So we say, hey, we want to download this file, give a URL and a file path to save it to. We then have the await keyword, right? So in this case, the await keyword is going to simulate a 2-second download, right? We then write all the text, all of the data to a text, right? And this is the data we're going to write, and then to the file path. And then we say, hey, that's been downloaded now. So the way that we would then go and use this is we get the URL, we get the file path, we then call file download async. What's going to happen now is that it's going to start downloading the file, and it will say doing other things, and then this part's going to return back with, hey, I just downloaded the content, right? Because these will execute immediately, and then you're going to have, because we have this simulated 2-second wait for if you were like downloading a file. So this becomes really powerful because it allows you to then fire something, let it run, and very simply and easily be able to work with things in an asynchronous manner. All right. That's all the more we have. We're going to go through another one of these videos where we knock out some more of these. Again, these are very basic. So make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. If you think I did something wrong here, leave a comment down below. If you want to learn more, I definitely would love to hear from you. I answer all the comments personally. So make sure you like and subscribe, and we will catch you guys next time. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel because we bring you lots of great tutorials and tips that every developer should know. See you next time.